Hi everyone, for our video today we'll be talking about these three brushes from Fude Bobo, and it's actually her latest additions into her Bobo and Chikuhodo collaboration series, which is the Nebulae Series. So I'm very excited for this, but before we continue, I'd like to give a huge thank you to Fude Bobo for gifting this my way. Thank you so much. Arigatou gozaimasu. I truly appreciate it. So I'm actually very excited for these brushes because all of them have weasel in it, and well, this one is made of pure weasel, and these two are actually mixed. So as I've said before, weasel brushes are one of my most favorites because they can work for powders and creams. May they be cream foundations or concealers, or even contouring products. I believe they will actually work, and even sometimes for lip application they're fantastic, especially if you have a smaller sized brush head with those types of bristles. So yeah, so for our video today we'll be talking about this. I don't think I would have any comparisons to this, but we will try, and we'll be discussing each one, and of course there'll be a demo on how I will be using these brushes. So let's go on and continue. So the first brush that we have here is the concealer brush, and this is the brush that has a bristle that is made with 100% weasel, so it doesn't have any mix on it. So the brush head design is actually round and flat. It's your typical brush head design, but it's actually kind of bigger than most of the weasel brushes that I have here in my collection. So for example, this is my Hakuhodo S132, and this is my Hakuhodo S139, so at least you guys can see the difference. So I now have a small, medium, and a large brush here, which is actually perfect because at least this will help me in adjusting the way that I'm going to be applying makeup on the face. So of course, if I need a small application of product on the face, I can use a smaller brush, and then if I need to apply product in a bigger real estate on the face, I can use the bigger brush here. But now that I have these three brushes side by side, you guys can see the main difference between these weasel type of brushes that I have. So the Hakuhodo here looks to be quite compact, as you guys can see here. The bundle of the bristles are close together, while the concealer brush here from the Bobo and Chikuhodo Nebulae series has a bit of airiness. So I think you guys can see that, especially if you put the brushes to the side. I think you guys can see that. Okay, so at least in my opinion, by the way, and also in my experience, when I see brush heads like this, with a little bit of airiness, at least this will give us the ability to actually buff out the edges and to blend out the edges at the same time. Not only in really applying it. Because sometimes this is what I would do when I am using these Hakuhodo brushes. I would pick up the product, I would apply it, spread it, and I would have to get another brush to actually blend out the edges. Okay, so I'm actually very excited to try this, and let's just try to see if the theory that I have would actually work. But also in looking at the bristles here right now, especially here on the side, you guys can see that there are more bristles in the belly of the Chikuhodo and Bobo concealer brush here from the Nebulae series in comparison to these two brushes from Hakuhodo. And it's not bounded very tightly together, which is actually perfect because at least again, we have that airiness that will allow us to play with the product on the face. Fantastic. I love it. I love the color of the bristle of this too. Very chic, very nice. And of course, when we're playing with the bristles here, it has nice movement, nice flexibility, but nice snap back into position. So this will just really help you run product and apply product on the face quite nicely, and it's not going to feel uncomfortable because sometimes with weasel hair, if it's bundled too tight and if it's bundled too thick, it can exert so much pressure on the face, and it can also become uncomfortable. But with this one, very nice soft sensation, no prickling sensation, but I can feel the strength of the bristles here, again, which is actually needed for a concealer brush. And the next brush that we have here is the eyeshadow brush, and what makes it special is that it has actually a mix of weasel and fitch in the bristles. And I don't actually have a mix like that here in my brush kit right now, so that's what makes this brush head very special for me, okay? Now, in terms of sensation and feeling, I can feel that the bristles here are actually quite strong and very compact, and I can feel that it has like, some resilience in it, which is actually going to be great, especially if we're going to be using this brush to apply and to blend out eyeshadow colors into the eyes. And because this is a mix of Weasel and Fitch, I believe you can also use this for like, liquid eyeshadows or cream eyeshadows, which is fantastic because I have a lot of those in my kit. Now, the core of the bristles here feels quite strong, but if I'm just playing around with the brush head here with my fingers, you guys can actually see on how soft it is. And there's also a certain airiness on the tips here. Very lovely movement, nice flexibility. So at least, like, it won't feel uncomfortable in the eye because this has some, like, resiliency on it. And in comparison to the concealer brush, like, both are quite soft. But because the brush length of the concealer brush is longer, that's why it appears to be like, softer. It looks to be more flexible than the eyeshadow brush here. But that's fine because, like, with the size of this brush is actually going to be perfect to use for a lay down application of color, or even like a packing application of color. And I like the size of the brush head of this because, like, if we're going to put it together with the other eyeshadow brushes from the Nebulae series of Chikuhodo and Fude Bobo, which I have here, look at that. So at least you have a small brush head here, we have a medium-sized brush head, and then we have a large brush head. So it kind of like completes the necessary brush head types that you need to have in your collection in order to effectively apply and blend out color. Okay, love that. Now in terms of feel, now the S00 brush here feels stronger because after all, like, it's a smaller brush, so it's bundled tightly, and this can actually be perfect to use like as a buffing brush, or even like, to buff out color at the edges or intensify your, like, socket line. And then you have this eyeshadow brush here, and this is again perfect for laying down color all over the eyelid and also to buff it out. And I think you can also use this to apply, like, powder on top of concealer, especially if you just really want to set it. This would be absolutely perfect because, like, you have the strength here to actually, like, really apply the product well into the under eye area. And of course we have this brush head here, which is a mix of Chikuhodo and Gray Squirrel, which is perfect if you just want to apply a nice hint of, like, eyeshadow color, like example the first lay down of color. And, like, then you're going to use the succeeding brushes to actually, like, layer color to the intensity and to the effect that you want. So I'm actually very happy to have this right now because it just kind of like enhances the Nebulae series from Fude Bobo that I have with me right now. Okay, and the final brush that I have here is the S02 brush. Now, when I was talking about this brush in my haul video, I said, like, I thought that I had this. So after, like, I've shot my vlog, I quickly went to my brush kit and I actually picked up the previous S02, also, like, the collaboration brush from Chikuhodo and Fude Bobo. And if we put it side by side now, so of course you guys can see that the difference is not only between the length of the handle, but also with the brush head size, wherein the S02 here is actually a tad smaller in terms of width of the brush head here. And if we just turn it to the side, we can also see that the new S02 here actually tapers into a much more sharper point in comparison to the previous S02. And in my book, that's actually perfect because at least that can really be helpful in helping us to apply and to blend out color well into the lash line, and even to help you to buff out the eyeliner products, which is perfect. And I also mentioned in that blog that it actually reminds me of the previous smudger brush from Sonia G, and it's actually like this smudger 2 brush. But again, the difference between these two is that the S02 here is actually like smaller in comparison to the smudger 2 here from the previous fundamental series of Sonia G. And if we put it to the side, we can also see that the S02 here still tapers to a sharper point. Okay, fantastic. Love that. So I believe that this is a very nice brush, like to have, especially if you are someone who enjoyed using the smudger 2 from Sonia G. Now, of course, the handles of these brushes still sport the very beautiful Nebulae series handle. Look at that. We have the black ferrule here, and then it fades into the black handle here, and then we have this very nice pop of color that nears the base of the handle. Fantastic. And I like it has a much more brighter quality to the color of the blueness here. It's not too moody, and it has a hint of green in it, which I actually like. Very beautiful. And of course, the name Bobo and Chikuhodo is here on the front, and there's nothing else on the back. Alright, so before we start using these eyeshadow brushes, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put on a hint of base on my face right now. And the main reason why is because I have a blemish on my forehead, but it's so much better now than a few days ago. So I am going to be mixing a little bit of my Lisa Eldridge Enhancing Tint with some of my Chanel Le Beige bronzer because I just want to warm up that skin tint just a little bit because I still have a hint of my tan going on. And I also love how the Chanel cream bronzer actually just enhances the tone of this skin tint from Lisa Eldridge, especially with someone like me who has olive tones in my skin, and I just find that they actually kind of work together. Okay, so now I'm gonna get the concealer brush, and with whatever is left here on my palette, I'm just gonna apply it in the most hard to reach areas of my face, especially that I just used a buffing brush. So this will just really help me to reach those hard to reach places. I love it. And now what I want to do is I just want to cover this up a little bit. So I'm going to be using my SC4 from Laura Mercier, and I'm going to be using the concealer brush, and I'm just going to lightly tap it on top of my blemish. Okay, so I can see some peeling going on, and I think that's from my vitamin C serum that I have been using. So it's already exfoliating that part. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the large eyeshadow brush. This is the S03 brush, and I'm just going to lightly pat it on my blemish just to set the concealer. And then with the brush, I'm going to go back and I'm going to tap more of the camouflage, and that does the job. Okay, and one more light set of the powder. And let me buff that out with the CH1. Okay, so let's move on to concealer now. So for today, I'm going to be using the concealer brush with my Nars Soft Matte Concealer. And I love using weasel brushes for these types of concealers because they just pick up product very nicely. And they also really apply it very nicely. And they can also buff it out at the same time. Sorry, there's a bug flying around. So as you guys can see, I'm just patting the brush here into my under eye area, and it's actually applying a very nice layer of product, and I'm also actually able to blend it out, especially here in the edges. And I can also shift the way that I hold the bristle, wherein if I flatten it out a bit perpendicularly here into my under eye area, I can get as close to my lash line as possible, and also here into the inner corner, and I can really buff out the product. Okay, so it's a bit cloudy today, so I apologize if there's a sudden change in lighting. I hope that this singular light that I have right now is going to work for us. So let's add concealer now here in the under eye area. I absolutely love it. So I'm just going to add one other concealer. So this is in the color Custard. So it's a little bit lighter than the color that I applied. And this will just apply some brightness here in this area. Okay, so as you guys can see, this is how the concealer brush applies concealer. So I'm gonna set my concealer now, and I would like to try and use the eyeshadow brush that has a combination of Weasel and Fitch, and I can actually see that it picks up a ton of color. So let me just remove a little bit, and let me press that into the concealer. Oh, I actually love this brush for that. It can really press the product well, and again, it feels very soft, so it doesn't feel heavy on the eye. And most importantly, I am noticing that the brush is not disturbing the concealer that I applied earlier, so this is fantastic. And let me just buff the edges of the powder with the CH1. I love it. So I actually like how these two brushes so far are working with me. Alright, so now I want to play with my eyes, and I'm going to buff out the bristles of these two brushes on a microfiber towel here on my table, just to remove any excess product. And at this point, what I want to do is I actually want to apply this liquid eyeshadow from Lisa Eldridge, and this is in the color Gaia. So it's a very nice, like, warm tone brown. And I actually like using a lot of my weasel brushes here in applying liquid eyeshadow, especially if they are a base, because I feel that they can really apply the product in one go, and they can really also buff it out at the same time. Ooh, I love this color, especially if I am going for a very nice smoky brown eyeshadow look. This is perfect. Ooh, I love that. And again, depending on how I hold the brush, depending on which angle, I can also really create a kind of like a lift for me. Look at that. And if I just lay the brush at an angle like this, I'm actually able to buff out the edges of the liquid eyeshadow here, and I'm actually able to create this very nice blend of color while creating a very nice lift for my eyes. I love that. Look how nice and even the blending is of my liquid eyeshadow using this brush. Fantastic. So I'm actually interested of applying just a little bit in my under eye area now, so I'm going to get more. And then now what I'm going to do is I'm going to be using the tips of the bristles of this brush now. I'm going to pick it up here at the back of my hand, and I'm just going to apply it here in my lower lash line. I'm actually quite surprised on how even I'm actually able to apply the liquid eyeshadow. And I'm also happy to report that I don't feel any prickling sensation at all. The bristle tips here are really dancing very softly onto my eyes. And it's actually delivering product very, very well. Look at that. Now let me also say that I'm actually exerting a very less amount of pressure when I am applying product on my face with a brush. And maybe that's why I'm not feeling any prickling sensation at all, because as I've said before, weasel brushes are quite resilient, and sometimes if the quality of the weasel is not that good, you can feel some discomfort when you're using them. But so far, I don't feel any discomfort with me at all right now. Love it. Okay, so I have now this other liquid eyeshadow from Lisa Eldridge, and this is in the color, if I can read it, Zora, and it has a very nice sparkly bronzy brown shade here with a hint of violet, I believe. And I'm gonna use this on top of this liquid eyeshadow that I applied earlier, and I'm actually seeing that I am actually able to be quite precise with my liquid eyeshadow application with this concealer brush. Now, I was actually initially worried that I won't be able to apply liquid eyeshadows on the eyes using this brush because it's just way too big. But if I just angle the brush specifically, if I want to get color into the inner corner here, I'm gonna use the tips here, and I'm just gonna angle it in such a way that it's perpendicular to my skin. And also here in my socket line, I can also do that. But I'm actually making sure that if I have product in this portion of the brush head, this is the part of the brush which I would lay, because whatever product is on the tips here, that will also blend into my mobile lid. And even if I just do it in a tapping motion, the tips of the bristles here will actually apply color well into my socket line, and that will just blend with the eye base that I applied earlier. Look at that, very nice. And let me just sweep the edges now. Try to blend it ever so lightly onto my socket line. Let me get more of the Zora here, put it at the back of my hand, then pick up the product with the edges, with the tips of the bristles, pardon me. And I'm just going to apply this on my lower lash line now. So let me get the S02. Let me just buff that out. Okay, so we have some learning curve going on here, but I just love how this brush, even if it's concealer, actually helped me to apply and to buff out liquid eyeshadow into the eyes. I love it. Okay, now so let's enhance this eye, and I'm going to be using this caviar stick from Laura Mercier, and I'm just going to apply a hint of this as close to my lash line as possible. The way that I would apply, like, a eyeliner pencil. Okay, so I'm now going to get the S02 brush, and I'm just going to use this to buff out that cream eyeshadow, and let me just soften the edges, like, really smoke it out. I really love, like, how the tips of this bristles feel. So this one has a mix of Chikuhodo and Weasel. So again, it still has like strength in the bristle tips to actually, like, blend out the color and to buff it out without adding any painful sensation into the lash line. And now let me get the caviar stick, and let me just, like, pick up some of this product with this brush, and let me apply that here in the outer edges of my lower lash line now. Really tap it in. That will just, like, really help to open up my eye. I love it. And I think I can also, like, apply a hint of a wing using this. Yes, I can. I love that. And let me buff that well into my lash line now. Ooh, fantastic. I absolutely love that. Okay, so now let's apply some mascara. Okay, so I have the Kitten Lash Mascara from Eldridge. Let me apply a hint of that on my lashes now, because I think this will just, like, really complete the look. And let me apply it here on my lower lashes as well. I love how these brushes actually help me apply this very nice smoky eye look using liquid and cream eyeshadow products. What do you guys think? I love it. I absolutely love it. Okay, so now let's try applying powder eyeshadows on this eye. Alright, so I'm going to be using this Fawn eyeshadow palette from Eldridge, and it's one of her latest releases. And I would like to use this very nice beigey brown eyeshadow first, and I'm using this eyeshadow brush. And I'm just going to pat this onto my eyelid. I actually like the size of this, especially if I want to apply the first initial laydown of color into the eye, because it just fits perfectly into the eyelid, and it really hugs the shape of my eyeball. And I have just realized right now that if I lay the brush head this way, the bristles here at the tips already, like, reach within my socket lines. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to press the bristles at the tips now, and then I'm gonna pick up some of the product here, and then I'm just gonna lay it on top, and I'm gonna drag it this way just so that the tips are going to add color into my socket, and that's already going to enhance it at the same time that I'm laying down the product onto my mobile lid. And that kind of like hits two birds with one stone, if you know what I mean. I love that. You actually can't see the color because it's very close to, like, my skin tone. But again, if I lay it this way and if I just buff it out this way, that should really help to blend out the edges. I absolutely love this brush head. Hang on. Before we continue, I'm just going to shift my lighting just a little bit, okay? Hang on. Alright, so that's better. I've shifted my artificial light here in front of me, so that should help with the changing of the lighting because it's getting to be a little bit cloudy today. Alright, so anyway, let's go back to the eyeshadow application. I love just how this brush head, like, picks up color very nicely, very well balanced. And this shade, by the way, is a matte shade, so it applied the color very evenly on my eye, and I love this brush for that. And no fallout so far, so fantastic. And the reason why I'm enjoying this right now is because I have noticed that if I use a very strong eyeshadow brush for these Eldridge eyeshadow products, I see a lot of fallout. But if I am using, like, these very, like, well balanced eyeshadow brushes in terms of resiliency and strength, I don't see fallout at all, and I love that. Fantastic. Yep, no fallout whatsoever. Now, even if the brush head here is strong at the core, it actually, like, the way that it flexes when you press it onto the product, it doesn't, like, disturb the product on the pan so much that it doesn't create a lot of product fluff. And I love that, because if a brush head is just, way too strong and it presses way too strongly into the pan, it disturbs the surface and you actually tend up to pick up more product than necessary. And like, you don't only end up having so much product in the eye, but you also end up having a lot of fallout in the eye. But so far, none is happening with me right now. Okay, beautiful. So if you're someone who likes, like, using eyeshadows in a one and done fashion, this eyeshadow brush is actually a perfect brush to use for that kind of an application. Alright, so I've just finished cleaning the brush head of the S02 here, and I actually want to use this shade here. I love the color of this because it has, like, some shimmer in it, but it also has enough pigment in it to actually, like, apply intensity on your lash line, and that's what I'm going to be doing right now. So I'm just going to press the color well into my lash line. Look at that. I love it. I love on how, like, it enables me to get as close to my lash line as possible. And I also kind of love on how I'm actually able to be quite detailed with my application. And even if I'm applying color well into the inner corner of my eyes now, it's very, very comfortable. I don't feel any prickling sensation whatsoever. I don't feel like a very heavy pressure being exerted there, which is actually fantastic. But I'm actually able to see that it actually applied, like, product very nicely on that part of my eye. I love it. I love it. Okay, let me just remove any excess on the brush head tip now, and let me just buff out that color and blend it upward. Okay, I kind of love how this brush actually enabled me to buff out the color and to really soften it. Fantastic. So I'm gonna go and get this deep shade now. So this is not black actually. So it looks to be like a very nice, like, burnt brown color. So it has, like, some gray undertones into it, but it's still brown. But it's, like, deep enough to actually apply intensity and depth into your eyeshadow application. And that's just what I'm doing right now. I'm adding more depth by just tapping that color well into my lash line, and I'm blending out and enhancing the color that I initially applied down. Especially if you're someone who likes to enhance your lash line but you don't like to use a very dark color, and you also don't like to apply a very stark line, this brush can help you apply eyeshadow colors in a very detailed fashion, but you're actually also able to keep it nice and soft. I love that. So let me apply some mascara while we are at it. And I'm just going to buff that well into the base of my lashes and really sweep it upwards. Now, like, since we're nearing the end of our video, so let me get the S00 brush here. And this is what I'm going to use to enhance this eye further. So I'm going to get this shade here now, and I'm going to use this brush to maybe deepen the outer V portion of my eye and work it into my socket line. And maybe just a tiny hint of this, remove any excess at the back of my hand and really work it well into my outer V portion, and also blend that into my socket line. So at least this just comes to show you guys on how cohesive the 3 additional brushes that Fude Bobo created for her collaboration series with Chikuhodo, that they're actually working very well together with the other brushes that she released. And of course, if you want to, like, really enhance your outer V portion, you just get the S02 brush, pick up, like, the darkest shade in your palette and press it into the outer V portion. Really work it in. It can really help you to be very detailed with your eyeshadow application. even well into your socket line, and you have a very nice enhanced eyeshadow look. It's not that strong, but it's like, very softly enhanced, which I actually love. Okay, and then I'm gonna get the big eyeshadow brush now, and I'm going to use that to buff out the color and to blend it upward and into my socket line. I love it. And finally, if you want some enhancement into your mobile lid, you can get a very nice topper shade. Press it lightly, just enough, because this is a very sparkly shade, and you can always apply it there as a finishing touch. Alright, look at that, I love it. And maybe as a final touch, let's add some color into the cheeks, and I would like to use this blush. This is in Fresco, and let me use the CH1 brush for us, and let me just lightly apply it here, the highest points of my cheeks, because I think this color will work very well with this eyeshadow combination. So like really enhance it. And also here on the other side, very nice, very beautiful. They work very well with me today. Okay, so my final thoughts on the new eyeshadow brushes from Fude Bobo. Let me get them, hang on. Now, first and foremost, let me say that I was actually very surprised on how I was able to use these brushes to apply cream and liquid eyeshadow products into the eyes. Well, most especially these two eyeshadow brushes. Now, I was actually very worried that I would not be able to use this to apply cream and liquid eyeshadow products into the eyes, because they were actually very big. But because I'm a seasoned makeup artist, I'm actually able to maneuver the brush head to be able to apply it effectively, and I'm glad my techniques actually worked with this brush, and I'm still very surprised on how well I'm actually able to deliver this very nice, well blended liquid eyeshadow application on the eyes. So I'm actually very happy about that. But truthfully, I believe that this brush is perfect to apply concealer in your under eye area because of the size of this. And I'm sure you can also use this brush if you want to apply contouring products into your face. I just don't have any right now because it's in my makeup kit, and I knew I was going to be using this for liquid eyeshadow product application. So for sure, there'll be another video coming out soon that I might be using this to apply liquid or cream contouring products. So please subscribe down below if you want to see this brush in action for that, okay? And of course, I do love how these brushes actually applied and delivered powder eyeshadow products into the eyes. How very soft and very delicate, very well blended, and most especially I was able to do it in no time. And I love how all of these brushes really work very well with the existing brushes from the Nebulae series of Bobo and Chikuhodo. Okay, so I love it, super. And I love the CH1, super duper. There's a fly. Anyways, I love the CH1. I just love the way that it applies and blends out color into the face and even into the eyelids if I want to. Okay, yeah, alright, so I believe that's my vlog for today. So if you guys have any more questions about how I use these three, please let me know down in the comments box and let's have a conversation about it, okay? And if you do happen to have these brushes with you, please let me know what you use it for and what type of products you use it with, and maybe I might learn something from you, okay? Alright, so that's it from me today. So I'm gonna let you guys go now. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for being here, and I hope that you're having a good day wherever you are. Bye!